Hey guys, what's going on? TheRealOGnick here bringing you a brand new Marvel Rivals video. In today's video, we're going to be going over a full in-depth StarLord guide. In this guide, I'm going to give you every single tip that I can give you for this hero to optimize him to the best of your capabilities, to get the absolute most out of him in whatever rank or game you are in. I think he works in every single composition, and I think he can play into any single composition. He is super strong without being OP, and I think he's genuinely a hero that you can pick in every single game and have success with him and really make a difference for your team. I've put about 30 hours onto this hero, and he's pretty much single-handedly carried me up to GM2, almost GM1. And I think you will find great success with this hero. And not only that, but have an incredibly good time doing it, because people do get mad at you for playing him sometimes. They like to say, oh, well, you have auto aim, but there takes a lot of nuance and a lot of skill to use this hero, mainly with the movement, target prioritization, and just overall understanding a whole lot of game sense and timing along with cooldowns to really be the most effective and get the most out of this hero. As always, guys, I will have timestamps down below in the description and in the comments so that you can backtrack or fast forward at any point in which you would like. And if you guys do enjoy this video and want to see more Marvel Rivals content just like this, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. With that, let's get into it. Now, what kind of hero is Peter Quill, aka StarLord? He is a hero that can do it all. He is a hit scan, a diver, a flanker, a flyer, whatever the situation needs, he can provide it. So he does a lot of damage very quickly, especially if you hit your shots due to him being hit scan. He does 6.5 damage per round with 40 rounds per magazine, and he shoots 40 rounds per second. So you can empty the clip in literally 1 second, so you can do a lot of damage. To be exact, without any critical hits, and yes, StarLord can do critical hits, which is insane on top of it, he can do 260 damage per clip if you land every shot, not including critical hits. So as you can see, it is extremely easy for him to absolutely clip somebody and delete them from the game, not even using any abilities, just from one clip. Now, granted, there is a lot of movement and there is a lot of stuff in this game that can make that a little bit difficult, but for the most part, that is just what it is. And the nice thing about that, too, is you can clip somebody and then go ahead and go right into Blaster Barrage and just absolutely delete somebody before they can use a cooldown, before their teammate can turn around, whatever the case is. You can delete them from existence super, super fast, and that's what I love about him. He's so good against flyers. He's so good against supports. He's really good against tanks because no tanks can really mess with him in the air. He is super good against supports, and it doesn't matter what kind of support comp it is. And in my opinion, I love going against the trip support comps because it is just more easy damage for me, because he requires cooldown burning, he requires working together, he requires turning around, because if you don't help your fellow support, he will slaughter your entire backline in less than 5 seconds, depending on how many supports and squishies are there. It does not matter. There's nothing you can do if you aren't using cooldowns and making him burn his to actually gain effectiveness. And that's what makes him so good, is he requires so much attention and cooldown burning. Supports can't do anything. When it comes to flyers, Storm, Human Torch, or Iron Man, there's nothing that they can do. All you have to do is burst him down with a clip, then hit him with a Blaster Barrage, Stellar Shift if you need to avoid an attack, and they're dead. Unless they're getting a huge heavy pocket from like a Luna Snowflake or something, there is nothing that they can do. And even then, you can cut through that healing really quickly if you're hitting your shots, especially with critical hits. There's just absolutely nothing they can do. When it comes to tanks, no tank can close the distance on him. No tank can keep up with him. No tank can track him. And no tank really has any cooldowns that are effective against him outside of their ultimates. Like, unless they use an ult, there's nothing they can do. So they're just an ult farm for a StarLord, and it's super, super effective to play that way sometimes if need be from range. And when it comes to DPS, there's really no DPS in the game that should win a 1v1 against a StarLord. As if a StarLord hits his shots, a StarLord should win every single duel against every single duelist in DPS in this game every single time. A StarLord will win that duel every time. For talking about dueling and damage and going into the backline to become a menace, this takes me to my very first point: how to take most advantage of his abilities to do the most amount of damage possible to force these cooldowns. Now, he has a 25-meter range before drop-off, and that is a lot of range. I mean, most fights aren't going to happen past 25 meters, especially with a hero like StarLord. You're almost never going to feel that unless you're just shooting from a far distance, just because like you're resetting, whatever the case is. But for the most part, you're never going to notice that. So always take full advantage of this fact that you basically don't have a damage drop-off if you're playing him correctly. And your biggest goal is to try to clip somebody down to low and then use your blaster barrage to finish them off. Never start a fight, never start a duel, never start anything with a blaster barrage, as that is going to be a waste. That will never kill an enemy if they are getting healed even a second or anything like that. For the majority of heroes, especially given their health pool, will survive a blaster barrage even if they eat every single bullet. You really need to get somebody at least down to half, in my opinion. I always try to get somebody to around down to half, and then I use my blaster barrage. And it depends on the situation, right? Like if they have no healers and I'm just going after them, if they're half or even 3/4, I'm going to use my blaster barrage, follow them, and there's nothing they can do. And if you caught what I said, follow them. Be sure to always save some of your rocket propulsion and always save that for when you're using your blaster barrage. Now, the reason being is, one, you should always be maintaining and using your rocket propulsion in the best way possible, which we'll get to later on how to use that. But if you're maintaining that fuel correctly, then you should always have some with your blaster barrage, for the simple fact that if you're using your blaster barrage, you are a fairly easy target to hit. And if you happen to have to use Stellar Shift, that will completely negate your blaster barrage and reset the cooldown, and you can't use it anymore. It's a waste. So you have to be really mindful of this fact and use your rocket propulsion for two reasons. One, you're faster, helps you close the distance on heroes that are trying to run away, use movement abilities, or whatever the case is, so they can't get away from you. And two, because you can go up and down and spam that to make yourself way more difficult to hit, especially if you're going up against like a Hawkeye or a Hela or a Namor. Any of these hit scan heroes or projectile heroes that do a lot of damage in 1 to 2 shots that could take you out very quickly if you're not careful. This is super important, as you will make them miss with not only how fast you're moving with your rocket propulsion, but also with the fact that you can move up, you can move down, you can follow, whatever the case is, you can get away, whatever it is super, super effective. And it's going to help keep you alive a lot longer and make the most out of your blaster barrage, whether you use it as an offensive tool or whether you use it as more of a defensive tool as you're trying to escape, to use that to keep them from actually chasing you if they're low themselves. Super, super effective. Now you're probably just sitting there thinking to yourself, well, he sounds very much like a dive hero in how he's played and how you're explaining it. What if they just run anti-dive? Anti-dive doesn't work against StarLord. StarLord, is what I like to say, is a melee hero without any of the drawbacks, and he happens to be hit scan. Like, it just doesn't matter. And the reason it doesn't matter is because, let's say, the penny nest, a penny nest will go away in 2 clips if you're the only one shooting at a StarLord. No more turrets, just 1 clip that. It doesn't matter. StarLord can do everything by himself. If they have a penny nest, you can fly over it, fly around it, don't touch the ground, you're fine. Because it takes you a year before you have to touch the ground right now after the last buff, which is really nice. He didn't need the buff, but I will take what I can get, right? But it doesn't matter. If you need to take out the nest, if you need to take out the turrets, he can do that from a distance. He can do that from range. Remember, 25 range before drop off, 60% at 40 meters. It does not matter. He can do it all, and you can't even run anti-dive against him. It just simply doesn't work. And that is the most beautiful thing about him, is you can't counter a StarLord. You just can't. Now, we talked about his attacking ability and the best ways to go about it as far as using his barrage and overall rocket propulsion, and the best ways to target your enemies and how to really go about them in an effective way. Now we're going to talk about the second, possibly most important thing, depending on how you want to look at it, which is going to be his rocket propulsion as a whole and the best way to get movement out of him. So if you didn't know, it has a maximum energy of 1800, and every second that you use it, you will lose 300 of that, which basically means you get 6 full seconds of his movement at a 100% movement boost. But you gain 100 per second when it's not in use, which is really, really good. If you use this in an effective way, you can do incredible things. And I'm talking like you can get from one point of the map to the other like a Spider-Man without touching the ground if you know what you're doing. And the best way to go about this is to burst his movement. Very rarely will I just use his movement as a full-blown fly away, simply due to, one, it's super easy to track that, and then two, more often than not, you're just burning jet fuel for no reason. Because if you didn't know this, when you're using StarLord and you actually use his movement and you burst it with his rocket propulsion, you're able to get a nice bump or boost, basically. Like when you let go, you get a boost. So what I like to do is I hit my rocket propulsion, fly forward, but go up while I'm looking up a little bit, let go right away, and I just keep spamming that, and you get the most effectiveness out of that as far as distance while conserving as much fuel as possible. So when you get really good at it, you're really able to, instead of holding it up to when you get to a higher level then let go, you let go when you're halfway up, because you know you're still going to keep flying up a little bit and get that bumper boost I was mentioning a little bit before. And it's super, super strong, and it's very nice because it allows you to save as much fuel as possible for, again, the whole barrage tech that we were talking about earlier and how to use it and to use that movement with it. It allows you to conserve it as much as possible while still being extremely mobile for whatever situation or map or case you happen to find yourself in. So if you combo this bursting rocket propulsion tech with stellar burst, if you happen to run out of jet fuel and you need to get to a little bit of a higher point and you're just off the ledge, pop that stellar burst. You have two of them and they regen very quickly. So you can use these not only as an immortality, which we will get to in a second, but you can use them for movement text and for movement purposes, essentially, to really get to areas that you might not normally would be able to, especially in the middle of a fight. If you just do a rocket propulsion into a barrage and you're trying to get out at the same time and you can't quite get to a ledge, stellar burst it. And then you can get up there, get to safety, get heals, or get healed by a support, and then you're back into the fight, ready to go again. Next, we're going to talk about StarLord's best ability, which is Stellar Shift. Sometimes they call it Stellar Burst. I mean the same thing as Stellar Shift. Just when I first started the game, I'd call it Stellar Burst. Just forgive me, okay? Anyways, Stellar Shift. You get 2 charges, 5-second recharge per charge, and a 0.37-second invincibility duration. So when you use this ability, you get a 0.37-second iframe, which an iframe is an invincibility frame, which for those of you who have played Elden Ring and whatnot, you know what this is. But if you haven't, it's essentially a small frame second of time in which you can take 0 damage, not get hit, nothing happens to you. And that is what makes him super strong, because he can literally survive anything. You try to snipe him, he'll survive. You try to Scarlet Witch bomb him, he survives. You try to do anything to him, he will survive it every single time if you learn how to time it correctly. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it is easy to time, because it's not. This is something that will just take time and comfortability with you and just really getting used to it. There's no way majority of players are going to memorize Q times for certain ultimates and everything. There's just too much going on in games, too much happening at once. But it's just like cooldown tracking and cooldown timing. It's something you get the hang of. And the other really cool thing about this ability is not only do you get iframes and not only do you get a movement tech from it, but you get to automatically reload your weapons. And this is amazing for not only StarLord's ultimate, but just the simple fact that when you're going after people, you have 1 to 2 full clips at least on deck in the background waiting for you to finish off your opponents if you don't have a barrage, or if you do have a barrage, to go from one target to the next very quickly to take on 1v2s, or if you happen to be in the back lane, you delete somebody in that 1.5 second time frame that you can do it in, then you're able to get the most out of him and get the most DPS and damage down in the best way possible. Finally, when it comes to StarLord, we're going to talk about his ultimate, Galactic Legend. Now, I absolutely love his ultimate, and it pisses people off to no end, and I love it. It is so good, and it has 2 main uses and purposes. And they're pretty obvious, but if used correctly and effectively, you can essentially win a team fight without getting a single kill by using your ultimate. And here's how. Galactic Legend is an ultimate that requires the other team's supports to use a defensive ult. If they do not use a defensive ult, they will die every single time, and you will either 1, get a team wipe, or 2, you will take 2 to 3 of them with you, most likely supports, preferably supports, and you will still come back to the point faster and either keep pushing the payload or take the point in domination or whatever the case is that you're playing. and you will win that team fight, and you will continue pushing and taking the lead in whatever situation you're in. And that is what is so good, is it forces defensive alts out. So if you communicate with your team, you are able to say, hey, hold on to your alts, let me force out their defensive alts, or at least one of their defensive alts. And so we're able to actually manage it and get whatever combos or plays that we want to make. And so while doing this, like I said, if they don't burn their defensive alts or have them, you get a team wipe. Let's say they do have their defensive alts. If they have them, you have two situations that can happen. Now, one situation is if they're playing Invisible Woman. If they're playing an Invisible Woman, there has been many times where I've had an Invisible Woman pop ultimate, but she pops it just a couple feet in front of her, and before she can run into her big ultimate, you can kill her before she goes in there. You cancel her ultimate, you stop her ultimate because she already went through, so she's back to 0, and you can continue killing the rest of their team. So you basically win the next 2 team fights because of it, as long as you still have a defensive ult. The other thing that I see happen a lot of the time is that you can make them panic so quickly, because if you are using your Stellar Shift to constantly reload your guns automatically while you're up in the air lasering down like a fucking chopper gunner, then you will be 100% certain that there's going to be times where you have both supports drop their defensive ults at the same time, and now they just wasted the defensive ult, and both of them, as a matter of fact, and now they are in a very, very bad situation moving forward, because you are now on top of them with the cooldowns and with the ult management and usage. And more often than not, you should be able to win that game at that point, because their cooldowns are off. And before they can get theirs, you're probably already getting yours again, so you can continue the cycle, and you're going to force the other 2 team supports to really have to work together and say, hey, if he ults, I go, not you, and like really have to make them communicate, which, depending on the situation, may not always happen where they're communicating. So you can make a lot happen even if you don't get kills. And that is the most beautiful thing about his ultimate, is you can do a whole lot for your team without doing anything on the stat sheet at all. I love StarLord. He is my most played hero. He is my favorite hero. He is just incredibly fun, and I think a hero that everybody, if they get really good with, can benefit from. Like I said, I think he is a hero that you can pick up and play every single game and see great results every single game. We went over his DPS attacking abilities, went over how he is extremely good at going at squishies, but also really good against tanks and peppering them down, while also building his ult charge with his barrage, and then with also his ability to have hit scan in range at 25 meters, as we mentioned. We've talked about his movement and how you can get the most out of it through the bursting and the movement text, along with Stellar Shift, and the fact that you can really reach distances that you might not be able to before if you use these properly, and really get the most out of his jet fuel, especially with the latest buff. We talked about Stellar Shift itself and how powerful that ability is with the iframes and with the auto reload and with the movement tech with it as well. There's just so much to that ability that a lot of people sleep on and thinks just kind of, well, whatever, like, oh, it reloads. That ability is his best and strongest, I promise. It is so, so good. And finally, we talked about his ultimate and how powerful it is. And regardless if you get a kill or not, you force a defensive ult, and you really put their team in a bad situation cooldown and ult usage wise, and you can really take over games just by simply timing your ults great. And even if you don't, you can still force defensive ults, because they panic. A lot of people panic when they hear legendary, so you can do a lot of great things with it. And it's just one of the best DPS ults in the game, in my opinion, just for the simple fact that you need to answer to it, otherwise you will die. And that is just that simple. The only thing I didn't really touch on was the team up with Adam Warlock, because it's fairly straightforward. You're able to revive yourself, so you can make more risky plays and go for certain things that you may not or would not go for previously. But for the most part, that's pretty straightforward. And let's be honest, Adam Warlock's not seeing a whole lot of play, so it's not that important. But as I said earlier in this video, I really hope you enjoyed this guide, and I really hope this is the only guide you will need and you got all the information in one place here. I really spent a lot of time on this, and I wanted to do it correctly. I didn't want to just half-ass it. I wanted to do this the right way. If you enjoyed this video and you felt as if this is going to help you on your journey and becoming the Lord of the StarLord, then please consider leaving a like and a comment down below, something that you could take away from this video, or perhaps a tip or a trick that you have that I didn't touch on or know, so that we can help our community out and get the best that we can at this game and just enjoy ourselves the most. If you would like to see more content like this every single day, please consider subscribing down below. We just hit over 300,000 channels views, which is crazy. That's an absurd number to me. And I'm super grateful and appreciative of that. It means the world to me. I came back to YouTube after a little hiatus, it was like 7-8 years, and it's been super warm welcome. So I've been super happy and grateful for that. I am planning on doing live streams coming up soon. I want to start doing that, streaming on YouTube and whatnot. So if you would like to see that, please subscribe. I'm going to do games with subscribers, solo queue grinds of Celestial, games with subscribers of Celestial too as well, if people are interested in wanting to do that with me. I do try to upload every single day. Sometimes I'm unable to, just due to videos taking a little longer than I'm able to get them out for, or just simply time restraints, but I really do try to upload every day. In between uploads, I do upload shorts every day, whether that's memes or just funny videos, informational videos, texts, whatever the case is, Marvel Rivals related. I do try to upload it every single day, whether it's shorts or actual uploads. So if you would like to see content like this every single day, please consider checking out more videos on my channel and just staying subscribed and just keeping up to date with what I'm up to. So thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it helped you out. And yeah, have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye.